You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. If you're new to the show, we release brand new conversations just like this one with unconventional money makers every single day of the week. So wherever you're listening right now, if you haven't yet, please be sure to go follow the podcast, whether YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any number of other sources, we are there. Go make sure you subscribe so you never miss an opportunity to make more money. And if you want to leave us a quick rating review, we'll be eternally grateful, as it does truly help out the show tremendously. Today on the show, we're talking a little bit about golf and board games, which is a super cool topic that I'm stoked to dive into with my new friend, Igor Vainshtein. Igor is a startup addict, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and creator of Entreprenopoly, a board game that captures the wild ride of building a business. He's built multiple ventures across different industries and successfully sold a golf simulator company to golf tech. Along the way, he's generated over $50 million in revenue and learned firsthand what it takes to turn ideas into reality. His books, Practical Manifestation and Agile Manifestation, break down success into actionable steps, and he's all about helping fellow entrepreneurs navigate the chaos and come out on top. Igor, what's up, dude? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. You forgot to mention he started all these businesses. He failed at so many businesses.
Well, perfect.
People forget to mention that part, right?
That's a great segue into the conversation. Let's start off at the very beginning here, bro. Tell me how you made your first dollar ever.
First dollar. Well, it's a really funny story because I was born in the former Soviet Union, right? Communist USSR, a little place called Moldova, right next to Ukraine. My mom's from Ukraine, so I used to go there a lot. But the story that kind of really highlights where my journey began, and it opens up this whole kind of worms of conversations around, is something, is it nature or nurture, right? And so I was like 7 years old, went on the first sleepaway camp to Sevastopol, which is on the Black Sea. And long story short, the first day, super hot. We go to the beach. There's no vending machines. There's no water fountains. Like, this is communist USSR. And everyone's like dying of thirst. So the second day, I'm like, you know what? I've got all these like glass jars like spread around the dorm, and I picked them all up and I filled them with water, shoved them in my backpack. We went to the beach, right? With like, I don't know, how many, 30, 50 kids. I can't remember, right? But I remember, and then I started selling the water on the beach. And and like the kids first like started buying off me, but then the adults around like noticed, and they like rushed, and basically I emptied out my entire backpack in like minutes, and made a ton of money for a kid.
Oh,
It's
for
like
sure.
a movie ticket was like 5 cents, right, back then, right? And it wasn't called cents, but whatever, right? And I made something like $20, right? So you could, like, as a kid, I was like a millionaire. But the funny story of that, the second part of the story that's really interesting is, when we got back to my hometown, my parents got dragged out to the Communist Party headquarters, and they got absolutely like chastised for, raising a capitalist bourgeoisie, pig. It literally, that's
Wow.
what they called me. And so my very first business experience was like in communism, getting my parents to trouble, like, holy crap, are we going to get sent to Siberia, for a re-education camp? All of that. And then anyway, 3 years later, we moved to Australia. So,
That's crazy,
but
dude.
that's but funnily enough, that is my first business like venture.
Yeah.
And hey, look at the, the vision. Like, imagine if I had stayed in the water business back then, I could have probably sold to Coca-Cola for, billions of dollars years later.
Yeah,
That's
true that, man. Hey, well, you learned a really important lesson early on, which is the value of a starving market.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
being able, like, it's really hard to sell water in a grocery store where you're competing for shelf space with a bunch of other brands, but also taking water into a place where everybody's thirsty and nobody has water, you sell out in seconds.
You make a great point, and I think, with the theme of the podcast, I think people often talk about ideas, right? They go, "Oh, I've got this great idea." And I always correct them as much as I can anyway, before they get too offended. But I said, listen, ideas kind of whatever. Tell me the problem you're solving, right? So there are so many opportunities in the world. Like, they're literally every day. I have a thing called, I tell my friends I have idea diarrhea, right? My ideas just keep coming. It just keeps going. I'm like, stop, please stop. I wish there was like a tablet I could take and just stop these ideas coming.
Yeah,
They're
you
just
can.
because
It's called weed.
Yeah, it's not legal in where the places I live, but it's funny because when you see something like that, like there's a beach, it's hot, there is no water fountain, you go, well, obviously water is a problem, right? It's so easy to see, but yet that happens every day, I think, to a lot of people, and they just don't notice. And I think that's what triggered my whole life of entrepreneurship is that even from an early age, I saw the same thing that everyone, that 50 other kids saw, right? But I saw a problem that was worth solving. And I think if there was one thing I could kind of, impart on people when they think about how to create business, I'm like, what, fall in love with the problem,
Hmm.
right? Not the solution. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the solution is rarely ever the first solution that you think
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
which kind of speaks to the whole, ideas are a dime a dozen. The only thing that matters is execution, because the idea to solve the problem with this particular thing might not be the way that you end up solving the problem. You have to be flexible with the solution and
Yeah.
keep putting the problem as the front and center, of your focus and attention. But
Exactly.
yeah, that starving market thing it's like the idea of, you have, if you have a taco stand and you put it on the corner of a busy intersection and it's 2 o'clock p.m. and there's 12 restaurants around you, it's going to be much, much more difficult to get people to choose your taco stand. However, if you take that same taco stand with the same product, maybe they're mediocre tacos, they're not that good. And so it's been difficult for you to sell there, but you place it outside of a club at 3 a.m. with a bunch of drunk people coming outside who are super hungry, and there's zero other options and there's no other establishment that's open, then you're going to sell out of tacos. Even if they're the
Yeah.
crappiest tacos that money can buy,
Yeah.
the starving market ultimately will
Yeah.
provide you that bridge that you need to figure out how to make the product better in the meantime.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. Exactly.
So you have done a multitude of different products and services along the way, and now you have also written some books. You're creating more content around these things, which I always appreciate. Man, I always appreciate when true entrepreneurs like you are adding more content to the marketplace, because there's no shortage of people who want to provide content but have no,
Yeah.
we'll be careful the way I say this, but no context, no experience to draw from when they're providing that content. They're basically
Yeah.
just regurgitating other people's ideas and hoping somebody will learn it from them instead of the person who actually came up with it. And people like you need to be doing more stuff like this. So I'm interested, particularly in the golf simulator companies. Let's talk a little bit about that. Where did the idea come from, and how long did it take you to actually formulate a product in a difficult space like that?
Man, and I'll tell you this as well, as just as a preface to the story. A lot of my biggest successes have come from completely like random sliding doors moments, and the things that I thought I would succeed in, often failed miserably.
Hmm.
And that's been a really interesting lesson. And for me, I try to kind of, follow the scent of the money through the scent of the problem, right? And then solving that problem. So I got into golf. I'm completely back. I wasn't a golfer. I didn't grow up playing golf. I played a bit of soccer, being, born in Eastern Europe, soccer was the main game. But in college, like a couple of my friends said, "Oh, let's go hit a ball, whatever." And played golf once or twice a year, and that was fine. But then when I was about 30, I was no, just before 30, I was in tech. So my trade is actually technology. Like I'm a technical guy. I was super geek and I had big fat glasses. I had laser surgery, and always loved technology, still do. And I started a business, like a finance trading, like an algorithmic trading with a friend of mine that I met, and he was a good golfer. And at one point he just said, "Hey, listen, you should get some lessons." I'm like, why would I want to get lessons? Anyway, he dragged me to this place. It was like an indoor golf center in Melbourne. It was like the only one at the time. And I just first lesson, I'm like addicted. That I'm done for life. Like they think crack cocaine is addictive. Not that I know, but like a golf is just next level, right?
Hitting a
And
beautiful golf shot is the most addicting feeling on the planet.
it's like it's the thing that just keeps you coming back, and you look for that hit every like
Oh yeah, it helps
it's
you
funny.
endure the other 112 shots that you took the rest of the round that were all crap.
Exactly. No. And so I started getting lessons, and this business it was going out of business. And I was consulting for a big, national company here, actually Australia Post. I was a consultant for Australia Post here in Melbourne, And in the building, there was a big empty space at the bottom of the building in downtown, big tower. And I said to my buddy, I said, hey, why don't we buy this business and move it to downtown? And he's like, yeah, great idea. We had no idea what we're doing, right? And so we ended up buying the business for like next to nothing because it was literally shutting down. And then we opened and we spent probably 6 times what we thought we'd spend fitting out this new center. And we ended up running that, and I actually kind of quit my day job to help run this business because we it just wasn't going to be a passive business. That's the other thing that this is my pet peeve, right? I have a couple pet peeves. I'm just going to touch on one. This concept of you're going to have passive income through a passive business, like get it out of your head,
Yeah.
right? That does not exist unless you run like a hedge fund, right? And you
Right.
have like 100 million plus behind you. Like just does not happen. Every business is active. So I think there's just this dream being sold as a fallacy.
I
So
agree. Typically, people who talk the most about that passive income are the people who are trying to sell you something to learn
yeah,
how to
it's
make
like
passive income.
people teaching how to trade off stage. They make money teaching how to trade, and they lose all the money
Yeah.
in the markets. And I know this for a fact, from a lot of people because I was involved in that industry through an ex of mine, and I've seen this pattern of like they would monthly seminar make $1 million on the weekend selling $15,000 courses, blow it all for the rest of or like in the first week, just blow it all in the market, but they keep teaching. Anyway, we digress. So I said pet peeve, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You
Um,
did. You did.
and so I quit this really high paying tech job and went in to manage this business. And I didn't make any money for 5 years. And I was nearly bankrupt multiple times. I got married at the time. We had our first child at the time. It was really, really tough. And so there was a lot of pain through that process. And I kind of condensed this version, but basically that happened. Then I wanted to get out of that business, but part of it, I started selling simulators. But anyway, it didn't really go anywhere. I got out of that business. I just sold my shares to my business partners and said, "Look, I need to do my own thing." I started this thing called 24/7 Golf, which was again, what I saw as an opportunity. I saw all these gyms opening up. Remember the 24-hour gym craze when it first started, like 15, 20 years ago?
Mhm.
I'm like, why isn't there this for golf? And so I opened, and I think world's first 24-hour unmanned golf simulator center. Right. So you sign up online, you get a PIN code, you go to the venue, put in your PIN code, you go in, you practice, you leave. That's it. Right. No staff. I had a camera and I had a remote person from Philippines that would help with support. And the first center did really well. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I could open hundreds of these. And then I opened my second one and I lost 100 grand. And borrowed money. Like I've lost millions through this whole like there's the whole story there, but it would take us hours. And at that point, and this is what I'm saying, the sliding. So this like the sliding doors moment, I got into the golf business through my friend just saying, hey, why don't you take a lesson, right? Then I getting out of the business, and then I started this new business, and I'm like, oh wow, this is gonna be really good. I opened my first one, does well, but my second one, complete flop. Um, and then as that second one flops, I'm like, oh, man, I've got four. So I had four golf simulators in that second venue. I had two in the first one. I had four, totally wrong location, right? But lessons learned. And I'm like, I need to sell this because I need to recoup some of this money. I borrowed from my parents again, and so I posted these simulators on Facebook Marketplace, and they sold like that. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So I bought a few more, and I sold those. And I'm like, and the best part, this was, because I had this indoor center, people would call me all the time and like, how do I do this? How do I switch it on? How do I do? When I sold it on Facebook Marketplace, no one called me again. Like they just paid me
Mm,
the money and I never heard from them again.
interesting.
And I thought, interesting, because and this one thing that happened is when you're paying like 15 bucks a week for the membership, you expect the person that you're paying to kind of solve all your problems. When you're spending 5 grand of your own money, you spend hours on YouTube figuring out how to do it yourself. That was an interesting
Just a
contrast,
completely
right?
different client.
A different client, different mindset. And I'm like, this could be good. So I ended up going, screw this. I'm going to close down my first center and I'm just going to sell online. And that's what I did. And then Australia didn't really have like a simulator products that you could really get. So I started importing from the US, but the shipping cost as much as the product. Like you buy something for 2 grand, it costs you another 2 grand to ship it here because you have to air ship and all that. And, they were heavy. So I started manufacturing in China. I found a couple of factories and started manufacturing in China, bringing in containers, and the business took off. And then COVID hit, and again, most people suffered. But when everyone's locked up, and golf was banned here in Melbourne, in Australia, for months and months on end because it wasn't safe. Fishing was banned. I didn't know if you know that, but fishing
Wow.
was banned here because it wasn't safe for the fish. Yeah.
Wait,
Hmm.
what?
Yeah, you couldn't go by yourself in the middle of a lake to
Oh my
fish because
gosh.
it wasn't safe. Hmm.
That's wild.
Another pet peeve, but let's park that for
Yeah,
another.
yeah, yeah. That's a different podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, and so I started manufacturing my business. My business grew like crazy during COVID. I expanded to the US, all that, and then I'm like, I want to move to the US. So I moved to Dallas, Texas. Business, I'm like, I'm gonna go hard. I'm gonna, I've got this great product, and then 6 months in, like I had like no revenue, and I'm like, I'm about to go bankrupt. This is crazy. And then again, cutting a long and very up and down journey. 6 months later, I sold the business to, a public company, one of the biggest brands in golf in the world, right?
Wow.
And that whole journey is like I say it so quickly because I'm trying to compress it, but those moments were just completely by chance, sliding those moments where I just saw an opportunity that was just staring me in the face, and I didn't let it go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And you stuck in it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first door that closed. You're like, well, I'm done with this business. It was like the door closed, and then you're like, I wonder what would happen if I walk through that door. And then you did it, and something good happened. And then it was like, cool, let's do that again. And you open that, and you go
Yeah.
to the second door. It's like, oh, well, that one failed. All right, well, I guess I'm done. And then, oh, another door's open. Let's try that one.
And one other thing, just again, just for your listeners, a lot of people, I've had conversations with a lot of people that say, well, I don't make much money. How am I going to start a business? And let me tell you, that's actually the opposite of what is true. Because I had a really high paying tech job. You know, how hard it is to walk away from $250,000 a year salary, like to go put everything on the line and potentially lose your house and lose your parents' house and lose everything, versus like if you're making like 20,000 a year, like what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
Like you could always go get another 20 grand a year job. Like, it probably sucks anyway, right? It's like you have less to lose. When you have a high paying job, it's actually much harder to go and start a business. So for anyone who's listening, who are watching that thinks they can't because they're, at the bottom of some ladder that they imagine, it's like you actually have an advantage. And don't take that for granted.
Tell me about the sale. How was that process for you?
So again, very interesting. I was pitching, so I pivoted the business to be more like a white label B2B versus direct to consumer because there were very established brands in the US that were just killing me in the market. But I could deliver, because I was manufacturing, I owned the whole value chain. I could manufacture at a price that no one else could. So I started pitching all these other companies in the industry, say, hey, how about, you sell my product, but I'll label it as yours and all that. And I got some good traction. That's kind of what allowed me, like, as I was nearly going bankrupt, I got some of these deals through and they just went skyrocketed because there were these big brands. And then, Golf Tech, they acquired SkyTrack, which is a golf simulator launch monitor. And the day they announced it, the founder called me because I was pitching both of them to sell my stuff. And they said, hey, listen, instead of just selling your stuff, how about we buy your company? And I went, what? And they made me an offer, and the first offer was, as they should have, a bit of a low ball. But then, we talked, and I said, look, I really believe in my product. And again, this is another thing where people think when you sell a company, you get a check and you sell off into the sunset. And that rarely happens.
Yeah.
And so what I pitched them, I said, look, I believe that this product is going to absolutely be amazing in the market. You have the resources, I have the product. I had a patent on my enclosures, and it was proving to be in the market. And so we made a deal where most of my kind of sale, comes as like from the upside of the growth of the business. And that's, we did a deal, and I'm still working there and helping them grow the business. And it has gone completely bananas. The I think it's gone like 15x in 2 years
Wow.
of growth because it's on, you see it on TV, you see it during the Ryder Cup or, the Masters or whatever, you see it, it's in PGA Superstore, it's in, Shields, every big box, has it, and it's online everywhere. So it's been a really amazing journey, and it was a strategic sale. And so what I've learned, and I've spoken to other entrepreneurs that have had strategic sales, when you do a strategic sale, that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It's like 1 + 1 can equal 10 or 20. It depends on the strategic fit. So that was a really great learning experience of how to structure a deal that really helps the acquirer 10x their money, by sharing the risk with you. So that was really cool. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Can you explain a little bit more what you mean by 1 + 1 = 10? How can that happen?
So this is I started a course back many years ago in Australia at Swinburne University, Masters of Entrepreneurship Innovation, and the dean of the school, I forgot his name. I'm sorry if he's watching. Sorry. His whole claim to fame was he sold his company for $12 million to Oracle. Right, this is like 30 years ago, so it's decent sell, right? The best part is he was losing $2 million at a time a year. Right. And everyone's like, how do you just sell a company for 12 million when you're losing that much money?
Yeah.
And he said, because what he could see is that if Oracle take his product and sell it to their existing customers, they'll make $100 million in the first year. Right. And that's exactly what happened.
Hmm.
So Oracle didn't care that he was losing money. They went, okay, we can charge, say, 100,000 per company for this thing he developed.
Yeah.
And we have an existing 10,000 customers. Half of them will buy this. So like 5,000 times 100,000, we're going to make squillions. Right. So then you're negotiating a small fraction of what the buyer is going to make over time. And that's kind
Yeah.
of similar thing to what I did, which is, look, I know that if you take all your customers and all your network and all your, presence in the market and you take my product, you will sell 10 times more than I could.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so,
It's
and
not,
I'm
it's not
like,
just about the revenue that I'm doing. It's about the revenue that
yeah,
you're going to be doing.
correct. It's what they can do with their resources, with my product, and just give me a small percentage of that, and you keep the rest.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
What was this, a brand new revenue stream for Golf Tech, or were they already selling their own
So
simulators?
there were that's a great question actually. So there were Skytrack was selling other people's products and making like a couple of percent margin, a very small margin on it, right? Gross margin, because they were reselling, you get 10, 20 points on a resale. With me, they bought the whole value chain from factory straight to the customer, right? And so the margin changed completely.
Yeah.
And so what you could do, what kind of promotions you could do. And so they were selling a little bit, but they could see that like because they were manufacturing the box, right? Skytrack was the box. You go, well, we manufacture this, but then our customer who doesn't just want the box, right? Let's say if you bought a Skytrack right in your house, well, it's not very useful if you can't hit a ball into something, right? So you need all this other stuff. You need a screen, you need a projector, you need a mat, etc. And so they knew that their customers were going to other places to buy all these things anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So they're like, well, why let them go other places? Why not just service them end to end? And that's the other thing that, again, I think that was a brilliant strategy. And I love seeing that in other businesses where take your customer and go, how much of the share of their wallet are we giving away to our either competitors or other people where we could literally just service them because the customer doesn't want a product, they want a solution,
Hmm.
right? They
Yeah.
want, sorry, go on, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. You touched on a couple of really good things there. I don't want to breeze by. First of all, in the way that you structured your business, you could have easily just been one of those resellers and just been like, oh, I'll keep selling this stuff
That's
on
how I
Facebook
started, and that's how I
Marketplace.
started.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's like, I'm selling some stuff here. I'm just
Yeah.
buying it for this price and I'm selling it for this price and I make that margin. The problem with that model in terms of scalability is that you and anybody else can do that. Anybody can go start buying golf simulators and reselling them on Facebook Marketplace. There's no differentiating factor there. There's no actual value in the business beyond the cash flow of the business. So what you did by owning the supply chain and going vertical in the business was you added additional enterprise value into the company without adding additional cash flow by itself. Like the
Mm,
additional cash flow came from the fact that you were pouring into the enterprise value of the business, which
right.
demanded a higher multiple on the exit when a company was actually interested in acquiring you. But they would not have been interested had you not made that investment into making your own simulator.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to understand the value chain. You need to understand that, and you're right. Like if you're just competing on price, it's a race to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
You're a reseller of widget A, and there's 10 other widget A resellers. I mean, you see this on Amazon every day, right? There are so many, and again, this is people say, oh, it's so easy to sell on Amazon. Well, it is if you got the right product. But
Yeah.
if you're competing with 10,000 other products that have 10,000 reviews and all of this, like what is going to make you different? Probably price. And unless you own the factory that makes it and you can literally just own the whole value chain, you are not going to be able to compete.
Yeah. And you're not gonna be able to exit,
Yeah,
you know?
because no one sees that as a valuable asset.
Right. Right. That's
Ultimately, a
the whole
business is
point.
an asset.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the whole
yeah.
point. That was the whole like the whole strategy piece behind this is just like there's a difference between cash flow and enterprise value. And although cash flow does relate to enterprise value, it is not the only thing that defines it. Because like you said, there are other businesses out there who are just they're looking for ways to expand a vertical within their business, and they have way more resources than you do.
Mm.
And you can build in an attractive sale or acquisition for them that is really profitable for you if you can figure out the piece of their supply chain that's missing and provide that to them.
And in a similar sense, I know we haven't really touched on it, but my one of my current startups that I have and has been going for a number of like 8 years now, but it's an app that I've built, my team has built, which then takes that technology that tracks the ball that I was telling you about, right? There's all these golf simulators, and now and actually I haven't mentioned you have a red hat. I don't know what yours says, but I'll put mine on. Okay, just there you go. Um,
Make golf track great again.
Yeah, so
That's
that's
great.
that's my app, and and by the way, that gets quite a bit of attention at airports when I travel with it.
I'm sure it
Um,
does.
yeah, and I'm looking at the whole value chain. I'm going, well, what's this piece here where there's a technology, and now everyone has these things. Could these replace, like they used to be MP3 players, now we just have a phone. They used to be cameras, now we just have a phone. We used to have gaming. Remember those little gaming consoles, the like PlayStation or Game Boy, whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Now we just have these. So again, looking at the market, going, what do customers want? They want the solution. Like you play golf, right? So it's like, do you have an iPhone?
Yes.
So if you already have it, like if you just went, well, could I just play golf with my phone in my backyard? Like, why not? You already have it, right? You
Mm.
you already, and so there's this whole interesting you know, sort of vision you can build for yourself when you look at the market and you look at that value chain. You go, where can I solve more problems? Where can, you can either create a brand new product, right? Or you can do something that's already proven that people want, but you just do it at a price point that makes your competitors irrelevant.
Mm. A price point that makes your competitors irrelevant. Yeah, I like the way you phrase that. Tell me a little
Thank you.
bit about the board game.
So there, yeah, that's it there. Yeah, I'll just bring it out and show it. So Entrepreneurpoly. So I wrote both books, and I made the game as kind of a response to what I was seeing in the world, in the market of, self-help or self-improvement or business improvement. And so the books kind of started off because I watched do you remember the movie The Secret?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I watched that and I got really angry. I'm like, you know what? And I'll tell you what. I mean, it had good messaging, but the thing that kind of pissed me off was like, hey, you know what? If you sit on the couch and just visualize, drink in the driveway, guess what? It ain't gonna get dropped off in your driveway,
It's
right?
not
It's just
going to
not
happen.
happening.
Yeah.
And so you have to work for it. So that was the whole, I wanted to take the whole practical approach to manifestation, not so much from a woo-woo space, but from like because I was a project manager. How does a project manager deliver things for a company? And so that came out. And then second book came, 15 years later, because I do agile projects now and I run everything in agile and DevOps, and I absolutely love it. And I know like the best companies in the world run that. So there's a reason for that. And then the game was this kind of similar thing where I looked at how people were experiencing entrepreneurship. I looked at my own journey, and I have so many stories that would make you laugh and cry. And I was thinking, how do you, and I devour business books, right? I love reading business biographies, but it's like a one-way thing. Like, yeah, you read it, but like, how do you put yourself in the shoes of the person that's written the book, let's say? And one of my favorite, by the way, is Shoe Dog, the guy that started Nike. That
Mm-hmm.
just shout out to him. What an amazing book. But I love how you can read about it, but like I would love what I was thinking at the time is like I would love to put myself in the shoes of those situations. How would I react? And so I wrote the book, the game, I'm sorry, as kind of like based on my experiences, and I had this vision to allow people to experience entrepreneurship, the real entrepreneurship, not the rose-colored glasses, you're gonna have this, amazing time. No, no, it is painful and hard, and you want to quit, every day almost, but you just keep going. Um, and I wanted people to experience that in a kind of gamified way. So they would go, how am I going to react in this? How would I do this? How would I, if this happens, what am I going to do? And so that's kind of how it came about. And there are cards in there that there's, pretty standard like opportunities, and there's, expenses and all that. But my two favorite ones are that one is called encounters, which is people you meet that have an effect on your life or your business or whatever. And I've met amazing mentors, I've met amazing people, I've met amazing con men. There's one guy that I met that I was going to be an amazing mentor to me. He had this successful tech business. He had a Ferrari or two, blah, blah, blah. He ended up stealing my Amex and charging 100 grand on it, and basically stealing
Jeez.
100,000 from me, right? And that card is literally in that game, right? So so you meet someone who's you think is a great mentor, and you lose 100 grand.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's the encounters, and then the other one, which is really probably my favorite, is called deal with it. It's like stuff happens. I don't know how, if I can use, proper words here, but you can substitute it later. Stuff happens, you got to deal with it. Like being stressed about it doesn't make it go away. Crying about it doesn't make it go. Being angry about it doesn't make it go away. The only thing that makes it go away is dealing with it.
Hmm.
And so there's again my experiences, my friends' entrepreneur experiences, people I read about. That's in there to help people get their reps in of what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and hopefully kind of my bigger vision, it's I'm calling it crowdsourcing entrepreneurial experience. It's like what Wikipedia did for knowledge. I want to create something for, you've had experiences. Look, think about all the guests you've had on your podcast. Think about all the stories they've had, and the journeys they've gone through. How do we crowdsource that and let other people experience that?
Yeah.
And so it starts off with just a game, but my next phase is to actually allow people to submit their stories through my website so that they become expansion packs for the game.
Oh, nice. That's great, man.
Yeah.
I
So
love
that's
love the concept, love the idea. Igor, thanks so much for taking the time to share some of these things today, from a real business builder, somebody who's out there actually doing the thing and also putting out some content to help people in their own journeys. Let's move into the last segment here, sponsored by Go High Level. If you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this and you need somewhere to better maintain customer relationships, get new customers, leads, all-in-one marketing software solution, then you might want to try Go High Level. You can get a 30-day free trial at gohighlevel.com/Travis. And let's move into this last segment, Igor.
do it.
What profession other than your own do you think that it would have been fun to master?
What profession? Pilot.
If you could sit on a park bench with someone, past or present, and chat for an hour, who would it be?
Oh, so many people. Elon Musk.
If you had to start over today, what business would you start?
Something that takes away human jobs.
How do you like to learn best? Books, blogs, audiobooks, podcasts, or videos?
Podcast, especially video ones.
What's a good podcast you recommend?
Besides yours?
Besides this one, of course. Yeah, yeah. I would expect you would say this one first, but
Good. Yeah,
secondarily,
yeah, yeah. I was not paid to say this, by the way. I've been absolutely huge fan of become even bigger in the last few months of Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom. Absolutely love that podcast and the lessons he does every 100 episodes when he does the kind of reflection. So big shout out to Chris.
What is your go-to pump up song?
Okay, don't laugh. 99 Problems by Jay-Z and Linkin Park.
What is something that you are not very good at?
Detail. I suck at detail.
As we get everything wrapped up here, Igor, where can people go to get more from you?
Look, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please follow me and reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I know we didn't get that much time. I went a bit of a rant about the board game, but if you do want to find out more, go to biz.game. It's the short version because entrepreneurial is a bit of a mouthful to spell. So biz.game and LinkedIn are kind of my two main things. And Thank you so much for having me and having this really fun conversation.
Yes, sir. Of course. Biz.game to pick up your own set of Entreprenopoly, the board game that Igor has been producing. If you want something to play at home with the
Yeah.
kids, that's going to get them thinking about what they're going to do with the rest of their life and get them used to the idea of the ups and downs, the wins, the losses, and everything in between of entrepreneurship. Highly recommend going out and picking up that game, biz.game, and then go check out Igor on LinkedIn, Igor Vainshtein. That's VAINSHTEIN, Igor Vainshtein over on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for doing this, Igor. Everybody else listening, remember, money only solves your money problems, but it's a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems when you got some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch you next time.
Thanks, Travis.